So at that time, I just didn't have any more money left. And I found this treatment for Lyme disease is with bee venom. And you take bees and sting yourself with the bee, and you get the venom through there. And I did it for 4 years. I stopped this year in May, and it really helped me with a lot of things. Especially, it helped me getting my energy back, my strength back. I couldn't live.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Inventor and author of Primal Habits, Uninflamed, Master of You, and Body Thrive, and soon to be released, The Witch's Cancer Journal.
A weaver of words and ancient worlds into the future.
Plumbing for depth in the playground of your continual reinvention.
A wisdom rich, Agayana Yohini.
And now the moment we've been waiting for is here.
Ringleader of Club Thrive and Wellness Pro Academy.
A freedom warrior, earth mother, proud mama, devoted wife.
Not your grandmother's Ayurveda.
Futurist. Biohacker. Guru and Goofball.
Where truth and freedom prevail.
Evolving the ancient into the future.
Welcome to the Thrive with Cate Stillman podcast. Made for you by us.
Hello, this is Cate Stillman with the Thrive with Cate podcast, and I'm here with Tatiana Wolf, and we're going to talk about scary diagnoses, even for people that are in their 20s or 30s, and how primal habits or how circadian rhythm habits, anti-inflammatory habits, how those fit into the healing process. So Tatiana, do you want to tell people a little bit about your scary diagnosis story?
Yeah, well, it's kind of long, but let's do it. I was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease in 2018. I had just turned 30, but I had been having symptoms since I was 24. So the symptoms really just started with anxiety, then panic attacks, then weird things. Now I see it as there was just a lot of neurological issues happening. But I had like restless leg stuff and body tension, muscle tension, crazy things. So I went to the doctor because I started having tremors. And I guess I had them for a while because I thought it was normal. But my boss at the time, she saw my hands shaking and she said, "You're shaking." And I'm like, "Oh, I shake." And she's like, "No, but you should go to the doctor because I've seen you shake a lot." And I'm like, "Okay." And so I went, and that doctor diagnosed me with essential tremors, which is a genetic condition, and is benign. It progresses over time though, and it gets really bad. But so that was the diagnosis then, and she gave me a bottle of pills, and it was propranolol, which is for lowering blood pressure. It never worked for me for the tremors or anything, so I never took it. So I just went on my way and started to try to figure out what the symptoms were or how to make them better on my own. Because at the moment, I didn't really have much money, and I didn't have insurance either. So I continued living my life for many years. Just, I don't know, I was traveling back and forth in between the beach and the mountains and just living life. So I was just not really paying attention to symptoms, just kind of living and
So were
trying to do
your
my
panic
best.
attacks getting worse, or were they about the same?
They kind of eased that. It's got better for a while. The panic attacks, I got rid of those. I don't even know how. They just stopped eventually, but the anxiety continued. Panic attacks were just anxiety 10,000 times worse. Yeah, but it just continued. And I also kept moving around from the mountains to the beach and to Pennsylvania and things like that. So I was traveling, living life, but symptoms kept getting worse, especially the tremors. And I started having fatigue and brain fog and all these other symptoms that just were getting worse. So my husband was dealing at one point with a cyst in the back, on his back, kind of on the bottom of the back, on the tail, like the tailbone. And so there's a surgery for that. It's a pilonidal cyst, which is caused by a hair grown in the skin. So it makes a tract, and it makes a really long hole inside your skin. And so there's a surgery for this. And I told my husband, but what if Ayurveda has something for that? And so we looked it up, and it did. He has an Ayurvedic surgery for that. And so we decided to go to India. He got that taken care of. We were supposed to just stay a couple of months, but we ended up staying 4 months. And in India, I went to a Panchakarma clinic and I had a bunch of treatments, but I was just getting more weak and worse. And India is so overwhelming, especially we were staying in Bangalore. There's
Jeez,
so many people in Bangalore.
so crazy.
So it was overwhelming. My nervous system was just, it couldn't handle it. So we just stayed the whole time that we needed to stay. And then we came back, and that's when I got diagnosed with Parkinson's. So in the doctor's office, he was like, yeah, you have Parkinson's. And I'm like, I was not expecting that at all. So, I just was like, but why? And he was like, we don't know causes. And that's my thing. I'm like, what is the cause of all this? It has to have a cause. Like, it just not doesn't come out of nowhere. So they gave me pills, bottle of pills. Here, take this sheet on how to take the pills, and send me on my merry way. And I didn't take the pills. I don't really prefer pharmaceuticals, so I didn't take those pills for a while. And I just at that moment, I was actually living in Pennsylvania with my in-laws because I was super sick. I couldn't work. I was on disability at the time, and yeah, so I was living there. And I just, I decided, okay, I'm going to find the cause, or I'm just going to see how much better I can get with whatever treatments, or going to natural doctors or functional medicine doctors, whatever I could find. And so I went looking for what the causes could be. And I went to this functional medicine doctor, and he found that I was dealing with Lyme disease and mold toxicity and heavy metal toxicity and a bunch of other things. And so later I found out that pretty much all the places that I've always lived in were moldy, especially the house that I was living in at that moment.
In
Very, very
Pennsylvania,
moldy.
in your
Yeah.
in-laws. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Very. And so that's like a big cause for this. And so when you're living in mold and you're surrounded by moldy things, your immune system lowers. It lowers your immune system. So you're prone to more infections, more illness, more everything. And so I had already spent a lot of money in treatments with naturopaths and functional medicine, and that stuff is so expensive. And supplements are super expensive, and tests are super, super expensive, and the doctors are too. So at that time, I just didn't have any more money left. And I was like, okay, I'm kind of trapped here in this house. My family is in Colombia. My only family here is my husband. I'm living in his parents' house. So what are the options? And I was feeling really bad. Like, I had no energy, super fatigued, tremors badly. And I found this treatment for Lyme disease is with bee venom. And you take bees and sting yourself with the bee, and you get the venom through there. And so you do that along your spine, 10 stings along your spine, 3 times a week. The protocol is about 3 to 4 years. And so I was like, okay, I don't have really many more options. I don't have much money, and the bees are really cheap, and the supplements that you take with that are also very affordable. So I just decided to go for it, and I committed, and I did it for 4 years. I stopped this year in May, and it really helped me with a lot of things. Especially, it helped me getting my energy back, my strength back. I couldn't lift a pan with one hand. I had to it was so hard. My legs were very weak. Now they're a lot better.
Will you explain how it works in terms of stimulating the immune system?
Yeah. So you start little. You start with one mini sting and see what reaction you get. So that in case you might be allergic, then you don't continue doing that. But it works in the way that, so you do these things along the spine because that's where the nerves expand from. And so it's systemic. It covers your whole body because you're doing it along the spine. So the point is to do it eventually from the bottom of the neck, of the head, to the bottom of the spine. And so when you do it on the spine, it goes systemically. And the
Mhm.
venom has this component is called melanin. It really has a lot of components, peptides, proteins. It's really healing. And it is antibacterial, antiviral, and immune modulating. So it causes the inflammation at the site, but it sends the message to the whole body to modulate, to, if you need more defenses, then to heighten the defenses and to lower if it doesn't need so much. So
Wow.
because of this immune modulating system or way to act, it gives you strength and to fight other diseases and other, whatever you're dealing with. So yeah, with time, at first you feel really sick, you get Herxheimer reactions, all these things, but you just got to continue and go through the end. And so
So
I
it's like
did.
it promotes like a healing crisis in terms of like the getting sick, whatever it is, skin rashes or nausea
Yeah.
or loose
Yeah,
stool
because
or
you are attacking bacteria, so you're killing things inside of your body.
yeah.
So yeah, and at the same time, I also started detoxing with magnesium baths and sauna. I bought a sauna, a portable one. So
Mm-hmm.
because the
Like
venom also,
infrared.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
full spectrum is portable, so your head kind of sticks out. Is one of with the zipper.
Yep, that you crawl in like a bag.
Yeah, you sit inside.
Were you doing stuff like coffee enemas or urine enemas or anything to move stuff out?
Yeah, I was doing coffee enemas at the time. It really helped a lot. Moved, I guess they were liver stones or some weird things. I don't know. I just kept seeing many weird things. I did it for a while, but eventually it was too much in my nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I did it for over a year. It was really helpful, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of detoxing because you gotta detox the venom out of your system also, and just the stuff that is dying off.
So if you just
Uh,
get stung, it's not going to work. You got to keep everything
mm,
on the move to the exits.
exactly. And
Mhm.
so the way you're staying is you start with 1 and eventually bump up to 10, and you alternate half of the spine, half the upper half of the spine one day, then the bottom half of the spine another day, and you kind of alternate and
How
move
do you do
around.
it? Like, how do you get them to sting you right in the right place? Is it like a two-person deal?
Yeah,
Like,
well, kind of, because I had tremor. I was dealing with tremors. I couldn't hold
oh
them,
gosh.
but my husband was helping me. So we got tweezers and other like self-locking tweezers,
Okay.
and we kind of kept them open a little bit. So we had a pointy pair of tweezers and the open one. So you take the bees by the leg with the pointy tweezer and put them in the open tweezer, and then you put them along your spine. So tap their butt, and then they sting you right away.
They do. They're just
Um,
so unhappy being in the tweezer that they're just
yeah.
like, fuck you.
Yeah, please let me go.
Right.
Um,
Wow.
but
Wow.
yeah,
And if people want to learn more about that, what are they Googling?
well, actually, the best way I think you can learn about this is through a couple of groups on Facebook,
Okay.
which is where I had all the support that I needed through the whole
Mm.
thing. One group is called Healing Lyme with Bee Venom, and the
Okay.
other one is called Bee Venom Therapy for Lyme Disease.
Okay. Great. We'll put those in the show notes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, those groups are especially the Healing Lyme group is super helpful and supportive, and it has the protocol, it has everything. They help you with everything there.
I wonder if that works with, have you heard of alpha gal, which is also a tick-borne disease?
Yeah.
Is it,
I feel like it will help. I'm actually thinking about going back to it because it helped me in many other ways. So I
mm,
feel because it's systemic and it's antibacterial and viral, any really
mhm.
any virus, any bacteria that you have systemically,
Mhm.
it'll take care of it. Is immune modulator, so also it ups your defenses, so it makes you stronger, so you can do it yourself also.
So it's like it could work for
And
how painful is it? Like, were you freaked out about it?
I mean, I was totally committed. I'm like, just do it. I
Yeah.
didn't think about it,
Yeah.
but it burns. It's really painful at first, but it really is 5 seconds of pain, and then it goes away.
Yeah. It's like getting a
That
injection or whatever.
Well, injections, I feel like they last longer. Literally,
Mm,
bees sting super hard at first, but it goes away really fast. So that's why I was like,
mm.
okay, this is doable.
Yep.
10, just doing fast. They all sting at once, and then it just feels okay.
Yep.
Um,
Got it.
yeah. One thing that I found really surprising is that it helped me release emotionally. Sometimes I was staying on my shoulders around that area, and it just would make me cry, not because of the pain, but it just releasing, just crying, and I just allowed myself to cry because it
Wow.
needs to
And what were
happen.
you feeling like in terms of the emotional, if we look at it as like emotional processing or detox, what do you think was happening?
I think throughout my life, I just held too many tears and too many things inside, and it was time to let it go. So when I decided to do the bees, I was like, I'm not gonna hold anything anymore. I'm just gonna release whatever comes. And that's what would happen. I just would start randomly crying, and my husband would be like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, just leave me here alone. Just let me cry because I need to let go of whatever it is that I have inside.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, right? Just actually processing. I mean, there's so much in Ayurvedic medicine around digestion, including digestion of emotions, and that there's a time component to that. It's like there's a sequence of a krama, of events. And if we don't have time, then it doesn't happen, right? Or if and often it's other people's inability to to be around pain, right? Or their lack of capacity to be vulnerable and intimate in the face of someone else's pain that rushes us out of that processing phase. And so then the processing doesn't happen, and then the pattern doesn't let go.
Yeah. I see bee venom as a pitta kind of substance because it's
Mm,
just so hot and it transforms things inside. It burns like
yeah.
it's so pitta. So I think it helps transform those things inside and release. That's how I kind of saw it.
Yeah.
But so when I was staying, I had this muscle tension on my neck here, like I felt like my shoulder was all the way to my ear all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
I had that for so many years. And that was one of the worst symptoms. It was so uncomfortable and painful. And so
Mm.
I took the bees, and every time I was staying there, I felt the burn traveling all the way to the shoulder and just easing that tension. And eventually, I don't have that tension anymore. So that's why I'm thinking about going back because my legs are getting tense again.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah.
so the thing is that the things at the bottom, like below the coccyx or right there, oh, those are really painful, but worth it.
And that's right where you need it if you have the
Yeah,
lack of
the leg.
feeling in your legs and the tremors and okay.
Yeah, yeah, but
So
worth
where
it.
do you test, like, what have you done in terms of like testing with Parkinson's? Are you still, do you do anything with Western or no?
So I was diagnosed with Parkinson's, obviously, in a neurologist office. I got tested. So the way they diagnose Parkinson's is clinically. There's no test that would say you have Parkinson's. So it's through symptoms and just observation.
Okay.
But what's crazy to me is that not all the people that are diagnosed with Parkinson's have the same symptoms. Doctors say if you take this medication, which is called carbidopa levodopa, if you take it and it works, you have Parkinson's because it's related to dopamine. But even people that doesn't work for them, they're diagnosed and they have different symptoms. I'm like, but why? Wouldn't this be different? I don't understand. So that's one crazy thing. But with Western, the only thing is I take Mucuna pruriens as my helper for covering symptoms,
Yeah.
and I have to take it with a little bit of a pill of a pharmaceutical that's called carbidopa. The
Hmm.
carbidopa is a dopa decarboxylase, which means that it preserves the L-dopa, which is what you're taking through the mucuna, preserves it in your stomach so that it can go to the brain without being degraded. So it has to be taken in conjunction.
Do they make
You-
nauseas of it? Like, is there a
Nas-
nausea so you can go beyond, through the blood-brain barrier through the nostrils?
with the mucuna?
Yeah.
I don't think so. It's actually pretty hard to find, mucuna with the concentration of L-dopa that you
That
need
you
for
need.
it to work.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that's the only thing I did. But when they're diagnosing you, they do this test. It's called DAT scan, and they give you the spell of a dye that will dye your brain in the area that they need to see if the dopamine is working correctly. Is in the middle of the brain. And so I did that, and my dopamine centers, they were lighting up, not normal, like strange. So
Mm.
that was another reason for the diagnosis. But really, there's not like a thing that would be.
Mhm. Got it. Okay. Continue. So at this point, what what habits have made the biggest difference in your healing?
Well, so all this happened while I was in courses with Kate. The diagnosis, the traveling in India, all the things. So through all that, I was supported by the community in the groups in the Body Thrive, and I was at the time I was in Living Ayurveda. So I remember Sarita and Mary and a bunch of everybody was just so supportive. In India, because in India I had to shave my head to do a treatment. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so I asked in the group and they were like just cheering for me, just do it, you never know. And so I shaved my head and super
Remember.
supportive, super supportive.
Oh my gosh, we just felt for you. We were just the whole time like, oh my gosh, this is too much. Like, this is just too much to ask from the divine, like just this is too much.
It was
Uh,
intense.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And just
But
let's talk a little bit about symptomology versus the scary diagnosis. Because, like, one of the things I think that happens when we get a scary diagnosis, like you did with Parkinson's at age 30, or some people who get a diagnosis of cancer, is it's like the diagnosis is not, it's so interesting in Ayurvedic medicine how we do pathogenesis and diagnosis, because it actually describes from the root cause. Like, it describes the root cause of the imbalance in the diagnosis itself, right? So if we'd say it's like vata in the Maja Dhatu, it's telling you the energy, right? It's telling you the energy of the imbalance. And then say there's an Apana Vayu imbalance in the Maja Dhatu, then we're going to get, more specific. And then if it's ancestral, right, we're going to add that on. And so the healing is in the diagnosis because there's an understanding of what's going on. Whereas when we get some man's last name, like Parkinson, right, attached to a syndrome, attached to a group of symptomology, attached to, some whatever, it's diagnosed by a pharmaceutical that then alleviates symptoms, right? Or with cancer, it's like such a big, broad death sentence of a term, which scares people into a traditional treatment, right? Because the holistic medicine community is completely petrified of cancer. They're petrified of getting sued, and right, of like all sorts of things, that we have like a lot of manipulation within how we get diagnosed and how we then have a emotional response to that diagnosis. And in that emotional response, it changes how we think about our options. It changes really to the people around us and what they want us to do as the patient, and how they then influence our decisions out of their own fear or love, you could say, maybe both, and how much that is versus the actual symptoms that are occurring. Yeah, speak to that.
Yeah, so that's one of the main things I'm trying to convey with like my message and my coaching and what I'm sharing on social media is that, so when you go get diagnosed and you're not expecting, or you might be expecting that it will be Parkinson's or something like that, and they tell you that and they give you pills, you're just so overwhelmed in the moment, like you can't even think. So you just take the pills, take the paper and leave and just do whatever the doctor says because they know best, right?
Yeah.
No, they don't. So you're scared and you're overwhelmed and you don't know what to do. And then you go on the internet and there's a million things of information, conflicting information, that it just makes it even worse. Right. So you don't know what to do. And so that's when I say we need to start to get to know our body, how we feel inside, and the signs and symptoms, what they mean for us, because for different people is different thing, the causes are also different. And so in Ayurveda, Parkinson's is described or called Kampavata, which is tremors related to Vata. Makes sense. But also is mainly an environmental disease, in my opinion, and many other scientists' opinion. It's toxicity, and it's just damaging the nervous system, the brain, the cells in the brain. And so we need to get educated to how to help ourselves feel better. So the habits that I stuck with, I'm so grateful that I did, because like I said, at the time when all this was happening, I was doing Body Thrive, and I had dialed down my meditation and my oiling and my food and all the things, all the habits, the sleeping, the drinking water. And so when I was just depressed, super, and the rocky road, just up and down, I told myself, and I totally realized and saw that I needed to keep those habits in place because they were keeping me above the water. They were keeping my head out. If I would stop meditating, my thoughts will take over, or if I stop doing yoga, then I would just become more and more stagnant, and that just doesn't help. So you got to keep moving and your mind going, because you can't fall into negativity with that diagnosis with no options that you feel like there isn't. And so you just got to keep that habits on, to keep you afloat.
Yeah.
But so I was in the Bible. I don't really read the Bible. Maybe I should, but I have seen or read that there's a couple of passages in the Bible that mention mold in the ancient times. And if Ayurveda talked about Kampavata so long ago also, I was like, okay, there was no toxins like industrial toxins or metals or things back then, but mold, there's always been mold, and nobody's looking at that. And so recently I actually got a test. It's a urine test, and they test for mycotoxins. Mycotoxins are the toxins released by mold spores.
Okay.
They're not alive because they're toxins, so they're chemicals, and so they come out in your urine. I received the results, and I have 2 toxins super high. One is ochratoxin A, which is related to nervous system dysfunction and Parkinson's diagnosis. And the other one is citrulline. So there's a lot of things to look, to investigate, because this is not going to be just a coincidence. Like, mold has been around for a really long time, and nobody's really looking at this.
Right.
So I'm just like, just, putting
Well,
my...
I'm curious with that, like, how much does that have to do with microbiome health and the ability of the eubiotic microbes to overtake the dysbiotic microbes, whether they're fungus, bacteria, viruses, or archaea, because
I feel like I've read or watched somewhere that bacteria are kind of enemies with that's virus. Never mind that. I was gonna say with fungi, but actually fungi attack your digestive system, your bacteria. It causes this balance, right? Dysbiosis. So of course it's gonna mess up your whole internal system, your whole environment internally. So if your environment internally and in the outside is super important for you, because if you're breathing toxins, or your mycotoxins are also going to the body through the skin, like really easy, because they're tiny. So they can just take over, but this is something is super new that I'm just starting to investigate, because there's not many literature or studies in mold with humans. They're actually finding it in mold with animals, because the cows and the cattle were getting sick from being fed moldy grains. So that's where they're getting all the investigations.
Right. That's really where, to me, one of the oldest neurological formulas in Ayurveda is Panchagavya Gritta, right? So you have Pancha 5, Gavya mixed up, Gritta, ghee, and you've got cow dung, cow urine, cow milk, cow yogurt, and ghee. And you cook it down. And so when I look at that, and it's like, this is what, like, epilepsy, right? So like severe neurological disorders were treated with Panchagavya Gritta. And when I look at it from a microbiome perspective, when I look at mold from a microbiome perspective, it's dysbiosis, right? It's where you have like a certain number of organisms that are setting up shop, that are working against the host, right? So they're producing chemicals that are antagonistic to the physiology, and they start to take up more and more terrain, whether that's within an organ or a system. Or a point of localization. So when I look at that old formula, and when I understand cowpathy and primal habits, so if we look at what primal habits are, they're the habits that we had before agriculture. So before grain storage, right? Before mold exposure was as much of a problem, because we were hunting and gathering, and we weren't eating foods that were moldy, and we weren't living in environments that were as moldy, right? Yeah. So we're like constant exposure to microbiome, right? Then we have agriculture, and then we start to borrow the cow's immune system. So cowpathy is what it's called in Ayurveda, right? And so the medicine, like the ultimate medicine of cowpathy, is Panchagavya Gritta. And we start to see the diseases of affluence move into Vedic culture by the time of Chirag Samhita. So like by 2000 years ago, we already have type 2 diabetes, right? Which is a disease of agriculture, because you don't get diabetes. You don't get type 2 diabetes if you're walking around picking berries or you're hunting the wild animal. Like you can't be, you can't be fat and lazy or whatever.
You're not sedentary. Yeah, that's
You're
sedentary.
not sedentary. Exactly. And so when I look at it from that perspective, I'm really curious, because one of the things that I'm finding, I mean, honestly, Tatiana, I see it with all chronic inflammatory diseases, whether it's cancer or one of the 100 autoimmune diseases, or, alpha gal or Parkinson's or Lyme's or whatnot, is if we look at them through the lens of dysbiosis and we measure the person's microbiome, and this is what the pharmaceutical companies are doing now, right? So they're getting the microbiome signatures of various chronic diseases, so then they can create a cocktail, like a microbiome cocktail, to then, inject or ingest to restore, right? When is it all actually just either A in cow dung or B in dirt?
It is.
It is, right? So then do we just get to like dirt therapy?
But the thing is that the dirt right now is not the dirt that we used to have. And now it has pesticides and who knows what else. And
you got to get good dirt. It's just like, you got to be able to source good food. We've got to be able to source good
That's
dirt.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy. And so the mold also creates biofilms, which I'm also thinking
all
about
dysbiosis creates biofilms, right? So let's explain what biofilms are. Tell people your experience of biofilms.
Well, biofilms, the way I thinking is my boogers. Like my boogers are biofilms for bacteria in my nose. But there's also that kind of biofilms in your lungs, like loogies that you cough out, that's biofilms in your lungs, and they harbor bacteria inside. It could be bacteria, or it could be mold, or it could be viruses. So it's just kind of like their community that they create to keep strong, right? So that's why I was also thinking about going
and they block the flow of oxygen into tissue. And this is like I think a really important understanding of biofilms, is they become anaerobic and eventually they become fibrotic. So eventually the body will, and they're inflammatory in nature. So the body will create inflammation in order to dislodge the biofilm.
Yeah, makes sense. So I was bee venom is also a biofilm buster, a biofilm breaker. So that's why
what's it called?
Bee venom.
How do you spell it?
Bee venom therapy. Like the bee venom.
Oh, the bee venom. Sorry.
Yeah.
I thought it was Sanskrit. I thought you were like bee venom, and I'm like, what's bee venom? I don't know bee venom.
That's hilarious.
Okay, so bee venom therapy it's basically like a biofilm remover. Yeah.
Yeah. The venom is a biofilm remover. It breaks biofilm. So I'm currently working on detoxing mold. So I'm like, makes sense. I should probably go back to that, because to break the mold biofilm inside. Also, when you live in an environment with mold, it colonizes your sinuses and your lungs and your gut. So we have to take care of that as well. It's just nuts. It's all over your body.
Have you heard that arterial sclerosis is a biofilm?
No, I had no idea.
Or even like amyloid plaque with dementia you can look at that as a biofilm. So we can really see that like the body is all microbiomes, like all the systems and organs have their own. Even if we look at like, you can see that this is kind of new, the biliary stones or gallbladder stones are full of dysbiotic microbes. So we can start to see those as like a rock-based, stone-based biofilm.
Right. I mean, the bile cycles inside, like it doesn't renew every time. Every time your liver gets bile, your liver and your biliary sac gets out the bile, it circulates and it doesn't dump it out. It just comes back and back, because making bile is really hard for your body. So it tries to save energy and resources. So it keeps circulating it. I actually started to take Google last night, because I thought about it. I'm like, maybe Ayurveda has some binders, because we use binders to trap the mold.
Right. So like charcoal or Googaloo.
Yeah. So I started to use Google. And
are you using like Yogaraj Googaloo or Maha Yogaraj Googaloo? That's more joint specific, or?
No, I just got a bottle from Himalaya brand.
Yeah.
But it's in the bottle, it says it's for cholesterol, but it actually works in the biliary system. So it helps detox the bile. And that's where the mold toxins come out of. and come out in the bile. So if
Bile.
you trap the bile and get it out,
Yeah.
then you're detoxing the mycotoxins and other things that come in the bile.
Wow. So does it make sense to take a pitta type of googaloo, like kaishor? That's
What's mixed with?
curious. I don't know. We can look it up. What's in kaishor? I think it's the bitters.
Yeah, I've been
But
really
I'm
curious about that. And I wonder also if Ayurveda has anything related specifically to mold. I'm sure it has to have something, because
so
that
the way that
existed.
I look at mold, like this is the way I'm looking at everything right now with Ayurveda is like parasites. Because in a lot of the way that Ayurveda, like when I think back to studying with Dr. Ladd in India and in Ayurveda school and studying with the Indian doctors in particular, they talk so much about parasites. And it's like, yeah, parasites are obviously worse in a tropical developing country that doesn't have, excellent sewage systems, which like India is
makes
largely been
sense.
characteristic of and has like a massive population. So that's been like, a few thousand years in India. And I'm not sure their population span over time, but like that's also why when I was doing like the Ayurveda summit and interviewing all these raw food Ayurveda gurus like Dr. Gabriel Cousins uh, and Dr. Shantri Kasera, is they're basically like the reason Ayurveda is into cooked food is because of hygiene and bacteria
Yes.
overgrowth and food rot, right?
So it's not really for digestibility?
Yeah, no. It was like
Okay.
all originally it was because they're like you're gonna get sick from the food because of
Sanitation.
mold and sanitation issues, right? So then recently I've started to think of all of parasites, that whole category, which we could be talking fungal.
Mhm.
Right? So if we look at microbiome, there's 4 categories: bacteria, viruses, funguses, and archaea. Archaea are the oldest living organisms. They're archaic. That's why they're called archaea. And then we have bacteria, viruses, and funguses all evolving after that. And they're all in the soil and they're all,
Everywhere.
in various environments. And in the body, if dysbiosis gets stronger than eubiosis, it's like it's a little bit of you know,
That's true.
Bhagavad, yeah, it's like a war, right? It's like a Bhagavad
Mhm.
Gita in a way of like you've got this delicate balance called homeostasis in which we're trying to get to know the new evolutions of viruses because they change the fastest, right? And the
Yeah.
body wants actually assimilation so that the adaptive immune system that it gets to know the changing environment, right? Because
Right.
the environment's not static; it's always constantly
And
changing, and
changing.
it'll continue to evolve. So the better we get to know that, we want to maintain homeostasis, but we get these little minor infections as the body's updating the adaptive immune system,
Right.
right? So if I look at all of parasites, like wherever Ayurveda says parasites, and I just say
It's
that
all of that. Yeah.
dysbiosis, that equals dysbiosis, you're right. It's all of it. It's all 4. It could be fungal, it could be bacterial, it could be viral, it could be archaea. We don't see as much as archaea. So then when I look at it that way, and I look at how does Ayurveda treat parasites and what does it notice about it? Well, one of the first things it notices about it is that if kids have parasites, they eat dirt
Because it has good bacteria, right?
because it has the bacteria that's going to restore and like dirt as opposed. And then if I look at Panchagavya Grita, right, and then I look at type 2 diabetes, these are the diseases of chronic inflammation where we've lost homeostasis and now we're more dysbiotic than eubiotic, which means some of our organs and systems are losing the battle and they're covered by biofilms and we can't dislodge them very easily. Like arteriosclerosis is a biofilm in our arteries, right?
Right.
That hardening is a biofilm. If we look at cataracts in the eyes, it's a biofilm over the eye. So we start to see biofilms is everywhere. And I'm even curious if we start to see cancer as a biofilm, how that starts to change our perception
Yeah.
of dysbiosis or dementia, right?
Right.
But then I look at like, okay, type 2 diabetes is treated. The treatment is hilarious, Tatiana. If it's 2,000 years ago and you go to the doctor because you have type 2 diabetes, so you're overweight, right? And they call it like sweet urine or honey urine because you're peeing out sugar. And that's what the body
Right.
does, right? It just starts to like empty it out. And that's how you know is the flies start to swarm around your urine. That's like one of their key diagnostics with
That's how they
type
know.
2 diabetes like 2,000 years
That's
ago.
so funny.
So what they tell you to do is follow a cow and eat cow dung and drink cow urine.
Can you imagine people doing that outside?
Well,
Oh my
or
God.
just eating or just
Mhm.
supplementing, starting to get in. It's like in Uninflamed and in Primal
Right.
Habits, like in the
Yeah.
books, it's like, here's how you make cow dung juice. Like this is how. So to me, there's this understanding of it really is the ecosystem that heals us. And it's
Yeah.
not It's
Mm.
not these little probiotics in bottles from the store. It's like literally finding good dirt. It's literally starting to garden, get our hands in the dirt. It's literally connecting with a cow and getting cow dung in the dirt and bringing that back into getting that back into our physiology and then noticing what happens. Cause I think like exactly like you said with the cat with the bee stings, it's like what we'll notice is that there's a lot of healing crises.
Yeah.
There's a lot of viruses and bacteria that create a reaction, but in the reaction, the biofilm's getting removed.
Hmm.
Right. So we
Yeah.
may have tears, or we may have mucus, or we may have loose stools, or we may have slime in our feces. We may have diarrhea. We may like all the things that go into like in Club Thrive, like that healing crisis
Right.
component.
Yeah, oftentimes when you're healing, for instance, with bee venom, symptoms will go and then they later on they would come back for like a few days or like a month and then they would disappear again. So I feel like we shouldn't be suppressing symptoms. Sometimes it's necessary, like I need to be able to do things, but they need to be expressed. The symptoms need to be expressed to be able to heal. Is how the body expresses itself when it's being attacked or when it's being hurt.
I love that. I just want to really underline what you're saying there is like when we're really attached to like what I'm doing should make me feel good right now, then we might completely short tail the process of exactly what you're saying. The body has to express. It has an expression of what was
Mhm.
inside coming outside. And the less afraid we are of what biofilms look like as they're exiting the body, because it could be, I mean, if we look at panchakarma, right, you've got vomina where you're vomiting out, you got nausea where you're blowing it out your nose, you've got virechina where it's
Enemas,
coming out your aeneas, you've got enemas, and
all
you've
the
got your
things.
skin where you're
Yeah,
expressing through your skin. And it's like, those are the 5 ways that the stuff's going to come out. So if we get more curious about what is expressing and what caused it to express rather than to
yeah.
hold, wow. And
Or
what are the
just
emotions and what are the ancestral memories that come up? So what happened for you in terms of that part? Was there a ancestral component to the neurology?
well, so the women in my family been sick, like I don't know how long, at least 3 generations back. So that's a thing there, and I don't know. I don't really have like clarity in my mind of what exactly it could be. I just know that my emotions and my nervous system just needed to let go of all those things, and
Yeah.
it showed up in tears, in a lot of tears. I just needed to
And
let
when
it
you
go.
were crying, what were you noticing? Like if you just go into the like the super subconscious experience, like what were you expressing?
And just sadness and yeah, I don't know, it was a lot of deep sadness. And when I would cry not just tears, but like it would be with like a lot of emotion, like sobbing, just coming from my heart. Something really deep. I honestly can't pinpoint exactly what could have been.
Yeah, and
um
it'll probably continue to become more clear,
yeah.
right, over time. So, okay, I found something on Googaloo and Bio. Do you want
Okay.
me to read it?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll screen share it. So this is PubMed and cardiovascular drug. I don't know what the Rev stands for. Okay, so we're talking about, I don't even know how to say it, oligum
Oligum.
resin.
Yeah.
Oligum. So it's Google, it comes from the Google tree. So when we're talking about a resin or we're talking about a binder like charcoal or Google, we're talking about something that's not absorbed as much in the body as it other things can glom onto it and carry it out, or at least that's how I
Right.
understand.
It grabs things. For instance, this one, the Google, I think it mainly works in the bile. So it grabs things from the bile and excretes them through poop. um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's also how charcoal works.
And that's also how charcoal works. And a lot of times people take this before bed on an empty stomach. So
Yeah,
that
you have to
over
take it away from
yeah,
things.
away from the other foods or it's not gonna work.
Yeah,
Okay, so Googaloo, hypolipidemic, antioxidant, anti-inflammatory activities, antagonist to the FXR receptor, transcriptional regulator for the maintenance of cholesterol and bile acid homeostasis. And there was something about it upregulates the bile salt export pump, the BSEP.
right. So it seems like he grabs the bile and just takes it out instead of allowing it to recirculate inside.
Removes cholesterol metabolites, bile acids from the liver, upregulation of the bile salt, export pump expression of glucolesterone favors cholesterol metabolism into bile acids and thus represents another possible mechanism for hypolipidemic activity. So it's going to clean also there. It's like, to me, what that says is it's also going to clean your fat, which if we look at the fat tissue, if we look at the adipose tissue as the endocrine system, as the regulatory of the endocrine system, then that's really going to affect the nervous system.
Yeah. Well, I actually became interested in Google because sometimes when people are getting treated to detox mycotoxins, they're giving Wellcol, which is a cholesterol drug. And that's exactly what Google does. Grabs the cholesterol and takes it out through the bile. So I'm like, it has to work the same. And the Wellcol is super popular in these treatments because it's just very effective to help detox, that kind of stuff.
So have you gotten it all into urine therapy or cryotherapy or some of the other primal habits?
Yeah, I was actually taking cold showers. I didn't really get a bathtub yet. I was doing it when I was in Pennsylvania. Here in Florida, it's impossible to do cold
You get
showers because the
cold.
water is not. No, I
Yeah.
have to get a bathtub. The urine therapy I have not gotten into. I actually just wanted to read about it. I want to understand it
Yeah.
first. That's how
Yeah.
I just do things.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
do have it in mind to do.
Well, there's a whole bunch of chapters in Primal Habits on Amazon or on
Right.
Inflamed, just on the urine therapy part with the science behind it to help kind of understand why and how it works. Because I'm really curious with a bee therapy, how that would
Yeah.
work with urine therapy, where you're
Yeah.
upcycling the antibodies.
Combining it.
Yeah, because I'm guessing it would have a faster. What we usually see with urine therapy is things have a faster detoxifying effect because you're also supporting. This is what's so cool. You're supporting the eubiotic microbial communities, and the urine dislodges the biofilms, especially
So-
with aged urine. So the more aged the urine, the more it scrapes the biofilms, whether those are in the cardiovascular system or in the sinuses or in the colon. And that is pretty wild to just watch, like to just kind of see the stuff that comes out. Yeah, totally. And then the stuff that opens up once those cellular systems can absorb oxygen again. Because it can feel like, oh my gosh, I can breathe, or oh my gosh, my lungs can expand, or like, oh my gosh, I can digest and eliminate.
I wonder, since mycotoxin come out in urine, I wonder what would happen if you drink that urine filled with mycotoxins.
Right?
What do you think?
My guess is what would happen is the other thing is you're upcycling medicine. So say you're taking Googaloo,
Yeah.
right? And I think some of the best case studies on this are John Armstrong's book on cancer, because we can also see like if cancer cells come out in the urine and people are upcycling their urine, then why does it work?
Right.
He has like all these crazy, stage 4 cancers. That book is like a series of like stage 4 lethal diseases.
You think it could work like homeopathy? Kind of like
Yep, definitely like
hormesis?
homeopathy, where you're getting the antibodies back faster, and then the body's releasing more. And my guess is the body's not, body's so smart, right? It's not gonna absorb what it doesn't want to. And so what my guess is, and some of the urine therapy experts that I've talked to, is like the body will actually then see what's coming in like homeopathy and be like, okay, this is what we've got. So just like in a ecosystem where you've got, it's like the rain falls, or the snow falls, and it, melts and goes down the rivers and into the ocean, the clouds absorb it, and then it happens again.
Cycle.
It has a cycle. And so we look at the human body as a water cycle. There's a lot more information and intelligence that comes back in. So what we find is that it releases biofilms, it nurtures the eubiotic microbes, and then it processes waste. So then what'll happen is, my guess is some of the stuff will come out more in the feces than in the urine. It'll help the body process it back through the digestive tract into waste. And when we look at Ayurvedic medicine, that's why Virechana is such a powerful activity in detox. It's like purvakarma, or all of the activities where you're softening and preparing the body to release the toxin, right? Whether it's fungal, whether it's biofilm, like whatever, whether it's viral, whether it's whether it's a tumor, or and whether the tumor is carcinogenic or not, right? And you've got this like softening process of going from a localized site, in your case, like the nervous system tissue, brain tissue, and you're pulling it back to the digestive tract. And then you release it, not if we understand the urinary system is not a digestive system, it's not a digestive waste system, right? It's actually urine has been your blood plasma.
Right. It's
Right.
filtering. It's filtering.
Right.
So it's filtered. It's not like poop.
Ultra filtered.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like
Makes
a
sense.
totally different thing. And I'm also curious,
Mm.
we should also look into some of the neuropathy with cow urine, because there's this text from 2,000 years ago that really goes into all the different types of animal urine and how they're used in really different diseases. So
Okay. Well,
I'll send that to you.
I actually wanted to ask you about fasting because my constitution is very Vata, and I guess I missed this conversation in Body Thrive or in Club Thrive. But I'm trying to figure it out. I've been reading Fast Like a Girl, and they explain how to fast with your cycle.
Yeah.
But I'm still unclear with like Vata because my eating times are just all over the place. And the way I kind of healed my gut because I had really horrible bloating was by following a Vata diet and
Yeah.
Vata principles for caring for myself.
Yeah. So, I mean, eating regularly, right? So, like with Vata, it's like regular meal times that are during daylight hours, food that's warm, spiced, freshly prepared, and oily enough, right? And usually pre-combined before it goes in your body, like soups or marinated salads, stews, that kind of thing is all like part and parcel of Vata diet. And in On Inflamed, there's a fasting guide, and then there's a women's section on fasting for women that with like good pictures and stuff that might be helpful. So with the progesterone phase, which is, after the ovulation phase, so usually right before women get their period, that's the time when we want to have more of this flexibility, like this variability, and so less fasting the week before you get your period, right? And even more, more of like 14-10s or like 14-hour feed windows,
Right.
rather than shorter. And then the rest of the month, you can probably experiment more with like 16/8. Right. So you have like an 8-hour feed window, 16-hour fasting window. And so say that for you, being Vata Pitta is like eating between 8 and 4. And you might even have, you might have like 2 big meals or 3 moderate meals of like 8, noon, 4. And then that still gives you 3 hours of autophagy.
Okay. So wouldn't the changing of food intake kind of make my Vata erratic? Because
During that
that's
1 week.
just when I'm changing, like in between progesterone cycle and estrogen cycle is like the change in timing.
Yeah, so the way that I would look at it is like say your normal fasting rhythm is 8 to 4, or is your eating window is 8 to 4, and you're fasting from a little after 4 until the next morning, 8 a.m. Then during the progesterone time, say you're just adding 2 more hours. So then it could be like 8 to 6 p.m.
Right.
You'd still maybe break your fast at 8, have your main meal between 12 and 2, and then you would have something a little later. And to me, it's like really that simple. So the whole idea of fast like a girl, and it's even fast like a guy, because they found the same studies in men, is that everyone needs metabolic flexibility within a like 4 to 8 week period, that you're not always, it's really, the guys that are just doing like the 1 meal a days, who might be Vata Pitta or Pitta Vata, so they're doing it for focus and concentration, and they're losing their metabolic flexibility, so their ability to like, gain more muscle strength and more like long-term mental focus. They also need to have metabolic flexibility, so they also need to do 14-10s from here to there, and then that actually like speeds up their metabolism, and they're able to digest more deeply over time.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad for you to share everything that you shared. The expressing of emotions, the healing crisis, the biofilms, the bee therapy. Super, super fascinating, your path and what's worked for you. And I'm really excited for you to start coaching younger women that have a scary diagnosis. I can see that your relatability is just going to be absolutely essential for a lot of people who feel just stuck with the pills and all of the, these expensive consultations that really aren't part of a community of care like you've experienced in Club Thrive and Body Thrive. So I'm super, super psyched for you to launch your own community.
Yeah. Thank you for all the things you teach. I mean, your courses and your teachings help me have helped me all this time so much just to regain my health. And understand how my body works and what it needs, how I can support it. Is just that, you just gotta learn to understand and recognize your body and how it works so that you can help it recover.
Oh, yay. Well, it has just
Thank you.
been quite. I just remember remember back to you in India, and just like we were all so with you and so scared too, and so not knowing and on the edge. And to see you now, it's
Yeah.
just so powerful how you stuck with it. Any words of advice to someone that's maybe where you were when you had your scary diagnosis?
Just there is more after that diagnosis. You just have to feel it and feel what it is right for you, what your truth is, and just go with that because that's your guiding light.
Ah, amen. Well, deep bow to you, Tatiana Wolf. And
Thank you.
as soon as we have your website, as soon as you have a place for people to land to connect with you, we'll put that in the show notes. So we'll just update it as you're ready and as you're launching your club.
Okay, thank you so much, Kate.
You bet.